Good morning everyone, I am Aman Mehta, and in today's session we are going to discuss about the ServletContext Interface. Now in the previous class we have studied the ServletConfig. So at that time I have said there is a single object per servlet that is called ServletConfig. Now ServletContext, an object of ServletContext is created by the web container at the time of the deploying the project. The object can be used to get the configuration information from the web.xml, but there is a single object of ServletContext per web application. Again, I am repeating, there is a single object of ServletContext per web application, and there is a single object of ServletConfig per servlet. Let's say if you want to share some of the configuration information between two servlet or more than one servlet, so it is better to provide that information in the web.xml file using a context param element. Now, how to get the object of the servlet context? You can use getServletContext method from ServletConfig interface, or the same method getServletContext method from generic servlet class. You can use any of this interface or the class method, namely getServletContext, to obtain the object of the ServletContext interface. Advantages: it is easy to maintain. If any information is to be shared between the two servlets or all the servlets, it is better to make it available for all the servlets. We will provide this information from the web.xml file. So if the information is changed, we do not need to modify the individual servlet, thus we can remove the maintenance problem. Now, what is the application? What is the use of this ServletContext? The object of the ServletContext provides an interface between the container and the servlet. The ServletContext object can be used to get the configuration information from the web.xml file. So basically, the ServletContext objects act as an interface between the container and the servlet. Your application is deployed on the web container, and if you want to fetch any of the information, if you want to decide which servlet should be invoked, that can be determined with the help of ServletContext. It also loads the configuration information about the servlet, and which is shared among all the servlets at the context level. Third, the ServletContext object can be used to set, get, or remove the attribute from the web.xml file. Now, whenever you want to share the attribute throughout the web application, you can use the ServletContext object. You can set, you can get, or you can remove the attribute. The ServletContext object can be used to provide the inter-application communication. How? Let's say my two applications are developed in the two isolated projects. Let's say project 1, project 2. ServletContext is a single object per web application. So if you want to interact between two different applications, you can use a ServletContext object. Now, how to provide the configuration information inside the web.xml file? On your screen you can see the code snippet. The context param element is used to define the initializing parameters in the application scope. The param name and the param value are the sub-elements of the context param. The param name element defines the parameter name, and the parameter value element defines the corresponding value. The difference is whatever value we are providing inside the context param, it is available at the application scope. In the previous case, during the ServletConfig, we were writing the parameter name inside the init param that is available at the initialization phase for the individual servlet, but context param is available throughout the application, so you can access these values from any of the servlets. Now these are the methods of the ServletContext Interface. First method, that is called getInitParameter. It is going to accept one string as argument, and it is going to return the corresponding value for the given parameter name. So let's say in the previous code, if I provide parameter name as a parameter name, for example, I'm writing getInitParameter and I'm passing one argument parameter name, so it will return the parameter value as output. Second, there is a set attribute. It is going to accept two argument. One is a string object and second is a object of type object. Basically it is a key value system. Whatever attribute you want to set, you can use this particular method. In the string, provide the parameter name or the attribute name, and the second, provide the attribute value. Same, if you want to fetch the attribute value, let's say get attribute, provide the attribute name, it will return the object of that particular attribute. So I'm going to provide get attribute, the string would be parameter name, so it will return me the parameter value with the return type object. Get init parameter names. Get init parameter names will return all the parameter names which are enclosed inside the context param. Remove attribute. If you want to remove any of the attribute, you can use the remove attribute method. Provide the name of the attribute as a parameter. Whatever methods you are going to use, get init parameter, get attribute, get init parameter names, all the values will be returned from the context param elements, right? This context param. The same method, get init parameter, get init parameter names, were available in the servlet config that will give you the data from the init param elements. Now let's see one of the example for the same. Okay, I have created one project, namely ServletContext Interface demo _8. I have created the web.xml file. This is the web app. It is having a servlet mapping, context param, and the welcome file list. This is the servlet. Servlet name, servlet class. Internal name is example. The class name is demo _ servlet context. Now I'm having a servlet mapping information. Servlet name would be the same as the servlet in the URL pattern. Now I'm going to introduce the context param. This will provide the configuration information at the application level. Param name, that is a DB URL, and the parameter value, that is a com.mysql.jdbc driver. Basically this is a MySQL driver string, database driver string, and the last would be the welcome file list. Welcome file, provide the URL pattern of the servlet which you want to load at the startup time during the execution of the web application. This is all about the web app. Now I have created one class overriding the HTTP servlet. Now it is having a doGet method. Now very first thing, to obtain the object of the servlet context, so I am having one method, get servlet context. Whenever your servlet has been invoked, by default servlet config object will be created during the initialization phase. So this is an implicit object. Using the servlet config object, you can call the get servlet context method. So this method will return the object of the ServletContext Interface, namely context. Now I want to fetch the initializing parameters which I have mentioned in the web.xml file. So object.method name, object is context.method name get init parameter. I'm going to provide the name of the parameter. If you observe, this is my context param. Parameter name is db URL and this is the corresponding value. So when I'm going to provide the db URL as a parameter name in my getInit parameter, it will return me the corresponding parameter value, and I'm going to store that inside the db out.println. I'm just going to print the value of the corresponding parameter. So this code has to be inside the try catch block, so any exception is occurred that can be handled properly. This is all about my code. So let me execute this particular code. This is the output. Our project is ServletContext Interface demo_date, and this is the value of the db URL com.mysql.jdbc driver. This value has been fetched from the web.xml file inside the context param. Thank you.